Hello there, my name is Sean Thomas. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you like the content that I'm about to share with you, please make sure you hit the subscribe notification icon, and hit the bell for further updates. Now, let's ask this question. How much money do other hostile nations donate to the United States to influence our policies when compared with Israel? How much money do we spend on other countries when compared with Israel? Now, let's break this down logically into two parts using the most recent available data. It's going to be primarily from 2023 to 2025 fiscal years, as 2025 numbers are still preliminary. I'm going to focus on verifiable figures from sources like OpenFacts, USA Facts, U.S. government reports, while noting limitations. Donations to influence policies typically refers to formal foreign lobbying expenditures under the Foreign Agents Registration Acts, or FARA. But influence can also be covert or through domestic proxies. Hostile nations is something that will be interpreted as adversaries like China, Russia, or Iran per U.S. Designations. And it might even include critic players like Saudi Arabia and Qatar. U.S. spending means foreign aid, military, economic, humanitarian. I'm going to compare to Israel, provide context. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to map scenarios, again, for realpolitik implications. Okay. So part one is going to be the foreign donations or lobbying component of this video in relation to influencing U.S. policies. Donations, lobbying. Foreign entities must register under FARA if they lobby U.S. officials or public opinion on behalf of foreign governments / principals. This is overt spending. Covert influence, which would be like disinformation and hacks, isn't captured in this section. So data from Open Secrets Foreign Lobby Watch, which is cumulative since 2016 with 2024 and 2025 updates, shows total spending, not annual, but trends hold. Israel's government has minimal direct FARA spending. It's basically between $1 and $2 million in recent years, and often via embassies. But pro-Israel influence flows through U.S.-based groups like AIPAC, which is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, which isn't FARA registered as it's domestic and funded by Americans. Again, AIPAC is domestic and funded by Americans. AIPAC's 2024 lobbying was between $3.3 million with $51.8 million in campaign contributions, far more impactful than raw FARA dollars. So again, FARA, there's a case to be made. FARA is $1 to $2 million, and AIPAC is $3.3 to $51.8 million. So that's a pretty big difference. But we'll compare that with other countries. Okay, so I want you to take cumulatively the FARA spending with Israel and the AIPAC spending with regards to Israel. So roughly that's like, I don't know, 50, let's just say 55 million, overestimating a little bit. Okay, China, $522 million. Okay, top spender, they focus on trade, tech, policy, vastly outpaces Israel's direct spending, but often via state-linked firms, okay? This is all referenced on opensecrets.org. Russia is minimal, like 10 to 20 million pre-2022, which was the beginning of the Ukraine war. Near zero post-Ukrainian sanctions. Their influence shifts to covert ops, like election interference, not formal lobbying, because they're basically a giant, espionage state. Iran is effectively $0 due to sanctions. They have no active FARA registrants in 2024 and 2025. They rely on proxies or illicit channels. Saudi Arabia, though, 344 million post-Khashoggi PR and post-Trump arms deal. They are very, very high on this list, but their ally-like status muddies hostile labeling. But again, they kind of joined because we were friends with Israel, if you'll reference the last video. Qatar spends a lot of money, 100 to 150 million, and this is via media influence think tanks, which have been accused of being underreported, and they are often criticized for their ties to Hamas. Okay, The key insight from all of this is hostile nations like China dwarf Israel's direct FARA spending. China has 250 times more cumulatively, but Russia and Iran's formal is negligible due to sanctions. They opt for cheaper, riskier, and covert methods. Pragmatically, influence isn't just money. AIPAC's domestic model amplifies Israel's voice efficiency. Now, to play devil's advocate to this, critics argue pro-Israel spending, AIPAC et al., totals 50 plus million annually, outpacing some foreign totals and skewing policy, like Gaza aid votes. But the counterpoint to this is legal U.S. advocacy. Equating it to foreign donations ignores citizenship. Again, there is a weird thing with dual citizenship, okay? So let's give the devil his due here. If China mirrored AIPAC with U.S.-based proxies, it had faced espionage probes, highlighting uneven enforcement. So, something to be said there. U.S. foreign aid totals $60 to $7 billion annually. It's 1 to 2% of federal budget, and it's split into military, which is about 40%, economic humanitarian, which is 60%, and the fiscal year 23 to 25 data, again, via US Facts, State Department, forwardassistant.gov, show Israel as a consistent top recipient. $3.3 billion per year, 99% of it goes to the military. But war-driven surges elsewhere outpace it. Take, for note, hostile nations get $0 direct aid. Comparisons are to allies, adversary counters like Ukraine versus Russia. The top recipients would be Ukraine, which is $17.2 billion, which is mostly for the Russia war. Again, this is 24 to 25 and 2024 to 2025 fiscal year. 17.2 for Ukraine. Egypt gets 1.5 billion. Jordan gets 1.7 billion. Afghanistan is 1 billion. Pakistan 300 to 500 million, and Taiwan is $2 to $4 billion. Do we want China to take Taiwan? I don't know. The U.S. spends more on Ukraine, about 5 times more than Israel, due to immediate threats. But Israel's aid is uniquely reliable. It's $3.8 billion in fiscal year 2025. Pragmatically, it's strategic. Again, Israel counters Iran and terrorism from Iran, yielding intel tech returns, like the Iron Dome, as I mentioned in my last video. Playing devil's advocate to this insight, aid to Israel enables controversial actions like Gaza, which I won't make a video about here. But again, this is very, very confusing topic because we're touching on a bunch of other subject matter areas where there is a debate to be had, and one that shouldn't be taken for granted in the context of this video. To be fair, there's a lot of information to sift through there, okay? It's not all cut and dry. I'll just say that, okay? I fully support Israel having the right to exist and defend itself against threats, and with that comes normal rules of engagement in war. I understand that Hamas has been intentionally making the life of the Palestinians very difficult by putting their military installations underneath hospitals, schools, and mosques and churches. Okay? So that puts Israel in a bad position when 50,000 people who want you and your country and every single one of the 15 million Jews that exist to die, that can be a little bit of a problem. What do you do in that situation? You can't let a fighting force like that exist. So it's kind of a double bind. Okay. So let's, again, play devil's advocate. Gaza, very complicated situation. Aid to Israel enables that to happen. It allows Gaza to happen. Again, a debate to be had. That in turn could cost U.S. soft power allowances elsewhere. The question is do we want to have alliances with Islamic-based nations over Israel? It's an either or. I mean, with the exception of the Abraham Accords, which were fascinating because most of the Islamic countries don't like Iran. So, I really should say, peace in the Middle East can be achieved if the more extremist elements of Islam are curtailed away from theocracy, more towards liberal democracy, And, there's plenty of room for the countries in the Middle East to adhere to whatever principles they want to as far as what's in their culture. But minimizing jihad could be one possible suggestion, right? But cutting aid to, or just like not being an ally of Israel, just as a fundamental principle, it does risk Middle East chaos. It could actually spike military costs, like Iraq and Afghanistan were in the trillions. If Russia invades more countries in this scenario, Ukraine aid balloons to 50 billion. Israel's steady flow prevents similar escalations regionally, saving long term, right? So the idea is that, you can make a case that in Ukraine, had we given more preemptive aid, like, I don't know, not had them get rid of their nuclear weapons in the mid-1990s, for starters, it might have prevented this from happening. Similarly, by giving just enough aid, $3.3 billion in the grand context of global economics is not that much money. As far as the U.S. is concerned, to support one of our biggest key players in the Middle East isn't really not that much money. Okay. Israel's steady flow prevents escalation, saving long term. Again, I'm going to say that. I just think it's a point we're saying. Israel's steady flow of donations from the United States prevents similar escalations. Okay. Now, transparency and influence aid fosters trust, but pragmatically, it's power politics. Alliances pay dividends. If data is outdated, check Open Secrets or state.gov for updates. Okay. So I'm going to end the video there. This was a shorter video than the last one. I'm going to probably call this a part 2 as to why Israel, why America. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed. Please feel free to politely check me on any of this information. I'm wearing my Freedom shirt in honor of Charlie Kirk. I don't want to be somebody who just, on a personal note, I don't want to be somebody who just berates people for having a different opinion than me. Charlie didn't do that. I don't want to do that. I am not Charlie Kirk. I passionately believe in what he stood for as an American citizen, and believe in Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and I believe that he is the guiding light in my life above all else. And the reason I'm making these videos is my heart is unsettled at trying to find the correct channels to offset some of my concerns about the world. Relying on all of the data that I've looked at, I've tried to form my opinions as unbiasedly as possible. And as I go through this process, I'm trying to make it as dispassionate as possible. So thank you for all your patience. For all of you good faith listeners out there, I appreciate you watching this far. I appreciate your support. I hope to see you in the next video, assuming that I'm still alive to make it. So have a great evening. Be blessed. Sean Thomas out.